You're entering Corsi Nation.
This is Jerome Corsi. Today it's Monday. It's July 14th, 2025. Thank you for joining us here on thetruthcentral.com. We're doing broadcasts every weekday. CorsiNation.com. You can find us on X at CorsiJerome1. And you can find me on Substack, JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. Okay, we had quite a bit of news today. To begin with, the Epstein affair is just not going away. I know Donald Trump wants to dismiss it and wants to say, let's everybody forget about Epstein. But the truth is that new things are coming out, and the fact is that the MAGA community expects there to be transparency and expects these issues to be brought forward and dealt with. And if they're just going to be swept under the rug, it's not what President Trump was elected to do. Okay, so Tucker Carlson is saying that Israel's implicated in the Epstein scandal. Well, most likely Mossad and CIA worked together on it. Ghislaine Maxwell, who is the madam to Jeffrey Epstein, she's in prison. She's the only one imprisoned over the whole affair. And she says she's more than happy to reveal the client list if Congress will just bring her before Congress to testify. Of course, that's not going to happen. Congress is not going to necessarily do that. Democrats aren't in control of Congress. Now, the Democrats are starting to say suddenly that they're interested in Epstein's list. I mean, it was all the Democrats who are on this list. And now they're, just because President Trump has been weakened by this, which unfortunately has happened, the Democrats are jumping on to pile on to try to cause more damage for Donald Trump. Now, all this thing is going to develop increasingly to Pam Bondi's detriment. Pam Bondi's the weak link. And if Donald Trump doesn't want her to take the hit right now, and he certainly came on very strongly on the Truth Social last week saying that he supports Pam Bondi and everything's just rosy-dozy, everything's great. Well, Dan Bongino was on the verge of quitting. And I guess President Trump talked to him over the weekend and walked him off the ledge. So Bongino's not yet quitting. And Patel's going to stick around. And it looks like Bondi is there because Bondi was at the FIFA event yesterday in New Jersey, the soccer event, with Donald Trump. So, we're going to continue with this. I think there are certainly very powerful people being protected. I've indicated possibly the King of England, King Charles. And what we see here is something that should not be happening. The MAGA movement's not happy already with the Department of Justice because it's not moving aggressively to bring forth cases. Now, there's a case coming against Comey and Brennan, and that has possibilities. And John Solomon was reporting over the weekend that it's very possible there has been a major investigation of the Russian collusion, and there'll be a lot of indictments and a lot of investigations started pretty soon. The problem is that the Justice Department needs to get some settling down, needs to get some new people in there to give Ed Martin and the others some support. They right now don't have enough attorneys to really do the job. And the attorneys who are in there right now are just not attorneys who are basically going to be performing very well. This is, I think, there's John Solomon. We can possibly play a clip from him. John, if you've got it queued up, we can play that. Otherwise, it's not necessary. But the article is saying that essentially John Solomon's reporting he knows that there are other investigations coming down the pike. And so therefore, if that's going to be the case, Donald Trump is hoping to weather this crisis and the people will forget about it. I don't think it's going to be forgotten. The Epstein case has been around now for several years. And, you've got Bill Clinton with a picture of Jeffrey Epstein's living room or entering his house of Bill Clinton wearing a blue dress and red pump heels and, dressed like a woman. Well, what's that all about? So again, the whole nature of this Epstein affair, which is about sex and pedophilia and bizarre sex involving the elite is one, an Epstein's suicide, which no one believes is a suicide. And now you've got all of that cover up going on. And, Pam Bondi saying there's nothing here to see. She's acting here, doing her best Baghdad Bob routine. Well, that's just not going to fly with the MAGA movement. And Trump is going to erode his support by this stupid issue. And just arguing and going on social media and telling everybody that his boys and girls are doing a good job is not going to cut it. Now, we just celebrated the anniversary of Trump surviving the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. And thank God he did. Trump has been the best president we've had and still promises to be the best president we've had in a long, long time. And again, I don't want to see him have self-inflicted wounds by trying to support Pam Bondi when she doesn't deserve it. She's not been a strong attorney general. And we are now getting into the point where people are going to start expecting action. Okay, and also a report came out of the current Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, signed off on an unacceptable security plan the day before the Butler rally where Trump was nearly killed. Okay, so what's that all about? Why didn't we get rid of this guy? I mean, he's incompetent, or he was MAGA, anti-MAGA. I mean, this was that whole attempt looked to me like a complete setup by the FBI, by the Secret Service, an attempt to allow a shot to be taken down at Donald Trump. A shot was taken, a shot that hit his ear in the last second, microsecond. Donald Trump moved his head so the bullet went by. That was an act of God. There's no other way to explain that except that God intervened and Trump's life was saved. Trump, I believe, views it that way. But we've got to take action to make sure that these guys who are anti-Trump are not left in power. Okay, so I'm continuing to say this is going to be a wait. Dershowitz is out there saying he's seen the list. The people have seen the list. Well, if that's the case, this list is going to come out. I don't know when it's going to come out or how it's going to come out, but you just don't get to see this continue on and on like this without everything here on the nature of what's going forward. So essentially, we're needing to see that there is more action in the Department of Justice to go after the left and the criminals we had on the left, which are legion. Okay, now I want to cover a couple more stories, which I think are increasingly important. There's a story out, and I'm paying attention to it today, about how since the, so we've gone on now since 9/11 with, constant wars going after radical Islam. And the questions are being asked as to whether or not we've won that war. Peter Schweitzer did a short report for the Hoover Institute on Christmas Day 2020. That's 25 years ago. The United States was spending less on defense as a percentage of the GDP than any time since the Great Depression. Okay, that was the peace dividend from the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. But immediately we went into the global war on terrorism in 9/11, and $8 trillion later, what do we have to show for it? Okay, this is by J.B. Shurk, Shurk, and the article is on Patriot TV, patriot.tv. And Shurk writes, the Taliban is still in control of Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda is in control of Syria. An apologist for Islamic Jihad is about to become mayor of New York City. And a pro-Hamas contingent of lawmakers wields too much power in Congress. Well, that's all true. I mean, we're going to say the global war on terror is over and terror won. I mean, I don't think quite. I think that's a bit of a hasty conclusion, because, in fact, we have seen that just now with the Iran war with Israel, this massive bombardment that Donald Trump pulled off brilliantly, that Iran has been set back on their nuclear ambitions. Also, Iran is being curtailed in terms of its economic ambitions if we, in fact, do have economic sanctions on Iran, I think it's very possible that the people of Iran would rise up against this regime, and that would be historically important because Iran has been the funder of terrorism throughout the Middle East. And finally, you've got a situation where Israel has gotten Hamas under control in Gaza, Hezbollah under control in Lebanon, and we're set up now with Syria with Assad gone, and Iran pretty much neutered for the moment. Houthi rebels are silent, largely because of Trump having massive military force and applying it effectively. Now, however, comes the difficult part. Now comes the part in trying to deal with sorting out the rest of the Middle East. And again, I believe Trump is right. The only thing we can do is the Abraham Accords. Peace through prosperity is the only thing that's going to work. Now, Trump is allowing Benjamin Netanyahu to continue the offensive in Gaza. And that's despite people being killed and all of the world saying, oh, this is terrible. The Jews are killing Palestinians. Well, first of all, Palestinians never really did exist as a nation state. Palestine, as I point out continuously, was the designation Great Britain gave in the protectorate after World War II to all who lived in that territory of Israel, and that included Jews, Christians, and Muslims. It was not distinguished. The Palestinians were a Muslim nation or a state. It's a fiction. And it's fiction that has been proposed in order to eliminate Israel and has become the theme at the United Nations, a two-state solution, the Oslo Accords. Well, they failed miserably, again, because when you talk about two-state solution, the Muslim countries just look at that as getting a better hold on Israel to ultimately destroy Israel. Until the Muslim nations renounce destroying Israel, we don't have any chance of real peace being settled in the region. Now, yes, Islam, thanks to the Democrats, we've had an influx here in the United States of Islam, and in states like Minnesota and now in Texas, there are Islamic strongholds that want to have jihad or have at least Sharia law. Well, Sharia law is brutal. It will mutilate young girls sexually, so they never have an orgasm. I mean, it's a destruction. Islam's never gone through a reformation, so it's really a medieval religion that is brutal and hates other religions, that does not come to accommodation that multiple religions exist on the face of the earth, and we're not going to go through anywhere positive with a religious war. But Islam wants a religious war. They want to kill the infidels, the Christians, and the Jews, and that's a non-starter. It goes along with the globalists who have a depopulation cult, and that started by Henry Kissinger in the 1970s, National Security Memorandum 200, which says depopulation globally is still the policy of the United States government. Okay, so we're beginning to look at 9/11. The most important thing it did was get the Patriot Act in, which gave the government more powers. We don't have less government. And certainly Thomas Jefferson was on that theme continuously, that as government gets larger, our freedoms are impaired. And he was right. We have government that is just far too large. In fact, we should be firing now, especially after the Supreme Court decisions, by agency, shutting down agencies. We've only fired about 10% of the federal bureaucracy. We need to fire 90% of it. Then we might get things back into control. Okay, so essentially saying that no, it isn't that we lost the war on terrorism. It's that it's a prolonged struggle. It's a struggle of religions, which has never been in human history very positive or easy to resolve. The Muslims were already thrown out of Europe once. That goes back to Charles Martel and history, which most Americans know nothing about. But when you have towns like Fatima in Portugal, it indicates that at one time, and Fatima was the name of one of, I believe, the Prophet Muhammad's relatives or sister or one of the family. That's a Muslim name in Portugal. It reflects the time when Islam had locked solid control over much of Europe. And people forget about that. So we're still engaged in that war. And now you see with Mondami running for mayor in New York that Islam is asserting itself in the United States the same way it has in Great Britain. And with the faction in Congress and our universities that support Hamas, not Israel, we're turning again into a nation. We're raising a class of youth who are fundamentally taught to be anti-American, as our universities went woke and are now teaching essentially hate America nonsense. So Donald Trump has a lot to deal with right now, and it's not going to be easy. I do believe that we can get some prosecutions going, and if we get this funding from this big bill going to at least replace those in the Department of Justice with those who will support Donald Trump, it's going to be necessary if we're going to make any progress. And hopefully that will start happening. But even where the FBI and Department of Justice are going after this building on Pennsylvania Avenue is evidently going to be abandoned, it still remains a political question. And Trump's idea to move it into the Reagan Center, the FBI, is probably a good idea. But the Democrats want to build a new building outside of D.C. and house the FBI there. Again, there's a lot of turmoil, a lot of this moment shifting. But we're going into a new era. The new eras are always difficult to be born. And so we're going to have to bear this out. We're going to have to go along with it because eventually we will come out of it. And I believe in the end, God always wins. So God will win here too. Okay, I want to shift now to a couple of other issues, mostly big economic news over the weekend. The BRICS nations met in Rio de Janeiro, and a lot came out of their meeting this time. It was a very impactful meeting. It's the 17th summit, and Zero Hedge is covering I think, a very good article on this, and it's written by Professor Ibragimov, who is pro-BRICS. He believes that the BRICS is the future. And it's important to hear what someone who is pro-BRICS think about how the movement is affecting the globalists, which appear right now to become a dying movement. But the BRICS is really having a much stronger economic hold on the world than most people realize. So the 17th BRICS meeting was held in Rio just a few days ago. And what is being written here by, I believe this is J.D. Rucker, no, this is by Zero Hedge. I guess it's by Zero Hedge, but J.D. Rucker is also picking it up on the same themes, as am I. That this is the Rio meeting was a significant step forward for the BRICS amid the accelerating transformation of global politics and the economic landscape. Okay, so now Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who I've got great respect for, he's a very accomplished international negotiator. Lavrov played an important role in the proceedings. Putin addressed the session via video link. And what Putin emphasized was that the left's model of globalization is now falling by the wayside. It's losing viability as the center of economic and political activity. The European Union is a shambles economically. Great Britain is a shell of its former self. And France, Germany, and Great Britain are all on the verge of economic collapse. This winter, with the higher prices of energy, is going to be a test as to whether those countries can economically survive. Okay, so in his meetings, in his remarks, Putin said that the center of economic activity is changing towards the global south, which developing countries, rising demographic resources, and technological potential. So this is going to favor China. The BRICS nations, of course, are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But it's been joined by many others, including Iran and Egypt. Now, Iran will see a potential economically to survive through the BRICS. But what Putin is pointing out is that China has established this Belt and Road Initiative throughout the southern hemisphere. China's gotten something like 160 ports it's acquired, largely in the southern hemisphere, and they want to get now this Chile port in Chile, which is Copia Port E. As I say, Todd Callender, my co-author and good friend, has an insurance holding. He runs insurance companies out of Nassau, and one of his holdings is the right to develop this port. Now, China has an MOU on the port, but has not yet exercised it. And when China does, that port will be the landing spot for the BRICS and Road Initiative in South America. The other port on the Pacific in Peru, China already operates and manages. China still manages the Panama Canal. While Trump has talked about these initiatives, he has not focused on them. And Trump's going to have to start focusing on them. We cannot let China control this deep water port in Chile. Eventually, they will establish a bi-oceanic route cross through Brazil, through Paraguay and Brazil to the Atlantic Ocean, which would link Atlantic Sea traffic with the Pacific Sea traffic. And these giant cargo ships from China could get into this port. It's deep enough. They carry 24,000 cargo containers, 24,000 TEUs, and these ships are also equipped for liquid natural gas, LNG, dual-purpose cargo ships. Okay, now, the major issue that is of concern to Donald Trump and should be to us is that Putin is suggesting that BRICS is not just an economic move, but a geopolitical move aimed at strengthening the sovereignty of the participating nations and insulating them from trade or insulating them from external pressure, and having a deeply anti-dollar agenda where the BRICS have contemplated going into a gold-backed currency of their own. Okay, so China is in the ascendancy throughout the southern hemisphere, and Donald Trump, with his tariffs, could inflict massive economic damage on China. China could, if they start losing manufacturing, China's going to have a very hard time being economically viable. And the world is in a position with too much debt, and debt always collapses. Okay, now I am warning you and encouraging you, please talk to Swiss America. And not enough listeners of the show are yet doing that. And if Chris, if you'll put up the free book that everybody can get, it's a book that's available at Swiss America. It's called "The Coming Global Crash: How the Coming Global Crash Will Cause an Historic Gold Rush," and that's happening. Call 1-800-519-6268 to get a copy of the book. That's 1-800-519-6268. Gold today is trading at $3,358.84. It's held above the $3,300 level for the last few weeks. And silver is at $39 an ounce. Silver goes over into $40 an ounce. We're going to see silver get on an historic rise as well. I'm telling you that gold could be $4,000 an ounce by the end of this year. And you should get on the gold train right now. Call Swiss America. They're consultative selling. There's a lot of good material on our website on Swiss America. And if you do that, you can get a lot of free reports. You can still get this walking dollar, half liberty, walking half dollar. If they're Liberty coins, figure of liberties on them. And you can get them for virtually what they cost in terms of the price in silver. It's a loss leader. You can get up to 250 of these by becoming a new client of Swiss America. Just call 1-800-519-6268. Okay, now a couple of things on the international scene with Russia. Trump is expressing impatience with Putin. Now, what Trump wants is for everybody to stop shooting. He wants there just to be ceasefire. So in that time, we can negotiate and try to rearrange things without new incidents of violence causing an increasing intensity in a war that is already a hot war. Okay, and that makes sense. Now, it's difficult on Putin's part because when Ukraine gets weapons, they use them. They're terrorists. They don't stockpile their weapons. Zelensky doesn't have enough weapons to make a difference. And now he's getting Patriot missiles. Look, arming Zelensky is not the solution to the problem. Donald Trump's got to understand that he's got to communicate to Putin that responding by sending drone attacks into Kiev, because Zelensky is still going around the world begging for money. At the recent NATO meeting, Zelensky did not participate, and he was not encouraged to join NATO. Yeah, but Zelensky's a criminal. He's a comic actor wearing a camouflage costume, and he's drawn Ukraine into a prolonged war that Ukraine cannot win, and we cannot win without a nuclear war. So the solution on Putin's part is to stop. Just stand in place. Take some hits if necessary, but communicate to Donald Trump that you understand, please, and that you're willing, in fact, to go through a ceasefire to give it an opportunity to work. If you recall, Trump gave a period of time to the Ayatollah to negotiate the relinquishing of nuclear weapons before he had a massive military attack launched against Iran. Trump will do the same thing. If Zelensky does not come to terms in a ceasefire with Putin, Trump will quit funding him. In the meantime, Trump's got General Kellogg back in there, and General Kellogg is a warmonger. He's the worst person to advise Trump on this. And I hate to see Trump getting bad advice again. It's what ruined his first term. Trump is not listening to the people who are truly mega interested. He's listening to people who, in fact, would like to see his presidency destroyed or diminished. Now, as we go through this next period of time, I'm watching things very carefully. Number one, what happens in the Epstein affair is going to be determinative of a lot of how the Trump presidency turns out, at least in the first year. Secondly, I don't think it's going to go away. What we deal with economics, I'm warning you that gold is going to continue to accelerate in value, and our economics are shaky. We're having a chance to come out of them and to essentially see ourselves in a much stronger position if we can just get a period of time here where the economy remains stable. The spending in this bill should do that while we introduce a cryptocurrency strategic reserve fund, which will be able to assist us in taking certain of the obligations, like in the non-discretionary budget, like Social Security and Medicare, off of the general ledger of the United States and put onto a cryptocurrency basis. There's a lot to be discussed there because the United States government dollar is a cryptocurrency these days, backed by the full faith and credit of the United States, but our credit rating has been downgraded twice. What do I see happening with the Trump administration? This is kind of like the middle innings of a baseball game. We're now settling into the real action of the game. The opposition, I think, is showing itself. And when we look at the Democrats they're supporting not deporting illegal immigrants. They're out there attacking ICE. They're supporting mother rapers, father rapers, and children rapers who are criminals, including MS-13 criminals. The Democrats are on the wrong side of every issue. They're supporting Islam in New York City. They're supporting socialism. They haven't given that up yet. The woke agenda will come back immediately if the Democrats win power. And the American people are tired of the Democratic Party. I think the Democratic Party is about to be destroyed by Act Blue. And this is going to be expanding. I'm hoping now this week to get some things in publication on Act Blue and get them into print. Once it starts, the Democratic Party is going to have a much more difficult time surviving. The Democratic Party is on the brink of extinction right now, and it couldn't go away fast enough to please me. So as we look at things, I see that the world is in flux, and it's going to take more time being in flux before it settles. But I think Donald Trump is on the ascendancy. I thank God Donald Trump survived that assassination attempt and is now steering the ship in the right direction generally. few more course corrections need to be made before we get the right team in place, before it begins operating efficiently. But the Supreme Court is now affirming that Trump has the right to fire employees, which is essential. Trump has the right to deport illegal immigrants. That's essential. And the courts are beginning to realize that these rogue judges who are issuing national injunctions as federal district judges have been rebuked by the Supreme Court, severely rebuked. And that's going to come to an end too. In the end, God always wins. God's going to win here too. I know it looks difficult at times and it looks confusing. Stay the course. Stay with it. Donald Trump will win. He's won many, many times. He's going to succeed here. It just may be that there'll be some controversies to steer through, and we're going to have to be patient while Donald Trump works his way through them. But we need to resolve that in the spirit of 2 Chronicles 7:14, let's get on our knees and ask God to forgive us for letting the world get to this level of pedophilia, drugs, crime, Islam, wars. If we do repent, God will hear our prayer and heal our land. We're going to need divine intervention to get through this period of time. But I believe it's with us. God's hand is with us right now. His hand's on our endeavor. We just need to continue forward. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. This has been Monday, July 14th. Thank you for joining us. In the end, God always wins. God will win here too. God bless. Thank you.